All right, good news. While you two were messing around, I tried all the food, and I'm going to give a great review to the bear.
Okay, time out. What is the bear? What, is this restaurant the bear? Am I the bear?
I thought the idea was restaurant ownership, more generally, is a bear.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Chris, you've seen the show. Who or what is the bear?
Well, your last name is Berzado, so Bear.
Okay, so it is me. I'm Bear. People call me the bear?
Yeah, they kinda don't, though. But in season 2, there's a restaurant also called The Bear.
All right, so I'm feeling like you have not answered my question at all. But just so I'm clear, I'm the main guy, right? I'm the guy who sort of looks like a hot Gene Wilder.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, let's pull him up. Hey, look at that. Can't you see like a kind of cross-fit Willy Wonka?
No, we're not taking shots at him. He's an FX Next Day on Hulu star.
Season 1 of The Bear was one of the best things television has done in years. And I don't mean that as a critic, because at the start, I loved the show and I told everybody I knew to watch it.
Not a great plan.
It was raw and mean and specific, and it knew exactly what it was. I know what that looks like because I physically lived it for 10 years in production on long-running episodic TV. Network, cable, premium, and then streaming. Shows that had run 8 or more seasons by the time that I had even stepped onto their sets. Seasons that were 13 hour-long episodes, or 22 45-minute episodes a year, which we would shoot over a 10-month span. When you spend a decade inside that machine, you learn what a narrative engine needs to survive. The blueprint here, though, is FX. Once a gold standard in TV dramas with The Shield, Nip Tuck, Rescue Me, Justified, The Americans, and Sons of Anarchy. Those weren't lightning in a bottle. They were disciplined industrial operations that scaled a dark, volatile premise across 70, 80, 100 episodes without breaking the machine. Season 1 of The Bear was the lean, modern descendant of that lineage. Cable discipline packed into a half hour, and from production down, the architecture was flawless. And so the premise is a guy takes over his dead brother's sandwich shop and tries to make it into something better while his own head is on fire.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
That's the show. Immense stress, family rot, and kitchen tension that made you feel like you needed a cigarette after every episode, even if you don't smoke.
The odor is very interesting.
Carmy's brother Mikey left him a shop and then checked out permanently with a bullet. The show didn't romanticize the suicide, and it didn't turn it into some inspirational backstory. It just showed you the mess Mikey left behind in a failing Italian beef stand held together by debt, terrible decisions, and whatever family loyalty hadn't burned off yet. And the place was real. Oh, literally, it was real. The actual dining room, or at least the bones of it, was lifted straight out of Mr. Beef on Orland Street, a shop the creator Christopher Storer actually ate at. And they even shot the pilot on location there. So if you do watch it, understand that that kitchen looks like it actually had people bleeding in it. So then Carmy comes in with experience from some of the best kitchens on the planet and starts dragging the place up to that level. And the conflict writes itself with constant issues and setbacks. In fact, you are literally dropped into it from the outset. The staff resents him because they know the old way was barely holding on, and his family questions him because he reminds them of everything that they lost. And Carmy resents that he has to fix what his brother destroyed while grieving the brother who destroyed it.
I've made a huge mistake.
Nobody hugs it out, and nothing gets resolved in some speech. You get through the service with the building still standing. And that's the win. Jeremy Allen White had just spent 11 seasons as the character of Lip Gallagher on the show Shameless, playing a charming screw-up who could talk his way out of anything. And I honestly thought he'd never be able to shake that guy, or that character. But Carmy is the opposite. He's precise, haunted, completely unable to bullshit his way through the damage he carries and faces. He doesn't charm his way through service, but instead survives it by being better than everybody else at the actual job while his personal light burns down around him. The show never made him likable and never really apologized for it. He got to be difficult and still be the best person in the kitchen. And with that, the craft matched the intensity with tight camera shots and sound design where you hear every sizzle. Every episode moved like services because real services don't give give you breathing room. Nobody sat around processing their childhood. The trauma came out in the work. The episode titled Review is an 18-minute one-take shot where a go-to system left running buries the kitchen in order tickets, and I promise you that 18 minutes did more for this show's reputation than any monologue ever could. So when Carmy breaks down at the end of season 1 within his Golden Globe winning monologue, it lands hard because the show just spent 8 episodes proving that breakdown was eventually coming. So now, from a financial side, it was cheap to produce. FX greenlit the show with no movie stars and no franchise scaffolding, with the pilot being shot in July of 2021 and the series being ordered in October of 2021 and premiering in June of 2022 on Hulu. 349 million minutes on Nielsen in its one 2022 chart appearance the week after the premiere. The smallest number that this show would ever post. And everything got built on top of it. It also broke a curse in that almost every kitchen shows die. Kitchen Confidential in 2005, which is based on Anthony Bourdain's book starring Bradley Cooper, was a pilot with real bite. I didn't watch it. And Fox only aired 4 episodes and then, well, tossed the rest. Burnt in 2015, ironically also starring Bradley Cooper again as another damaged chef, directed by John Wells, the same John Wells who ran the American show Shameless, was shallow and forgettable and grossed less domestically than it cost at $20 million in 2015. But The Bear delivered the raw edge and the technical precision and the family damage without softening any of it, and it succeeded where all the rest fell apart. Season 2 expanded the world. Instead of one location in one panic attack, the cast splits across the build-out of the new restaurant and everybody gets sent off to learn. Carmy starts dating the character Claire, played by Molly Gordon. The character of Marcus goes to Copenhagen and stages under the character of Chef Luca, and learns that being great at pastry means being boring about it in the episode titled Honeydew. The character of Sydney walks the city building her menu out of businesses that failed in the episode titled Sunday. The character of Richie tempts in a 3 Michelin star fine dining restaurant run by Oscar winner Olivia Colman's character Chef Terry in the episode titled Forks, which might be one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Richie starts the week polishing forks, convinced he's been exiled there as punishment. Then the place gets into him. He watches a staff briefing run like a military operation. He watches service run like choreography. He delivers deep dish pizza to a couple from out of town because someone on the staff overheard they had never gotten to try it, and you watch him realize in real time that taking care of people is a craft. By the end of the week, the guy who spent 15 episodes prior dealing cocaine out of the restaurant and screaming at customers is driving home in a suit belting Taylor Swift, and you kind of buy into every second of it. Olivia Colman is barely in the episode, and that's the genius of it. She gets one real scene peeling mushrooms, talking to Richie, and it humbles him. By the end of season 2, the sign that was in her kitchen that says every second counts rewired Richie for the rest of the series. And although the season slowed a bit in places, it still never lost you. The renovation, the investment troubles from the character of Unc, and the opening night that could sink all of it. Which brings us to the episode titled Fishes, which bested my expectations. One dinner, one family, Christmas at the Brazados, and one of the best single hours of television in the last decade. Jamie Lee Curtis, Bob Odenkirk, John Mulaney, Sarah Paulson, all playing specific Brazado wounds. Every cruel thing said under too much wine and too much history comes out of that house and that holiday. And by the time the character of Donna drives her car through the house wall, you understand everything Carmy has been carrying since the pilot. I watched it with my shoulders up around my ears.
You fucking piece of shit!
By the end of the season, the Bear was in business and Carmy was locked in a freezer having a breakdown and indirectly, but also directly, breaking up with the character of Claire.
I wasn't here. Right? What the fuck was I thinking? Like I was gonna be in a relationship? I'm a fucking psycho. That's why I'm good at what I do. That's how I operate. I am the best because I didn't have any of this fucking bullshit. Right? I could focus and I could concentrate and I had a routine and I had fucking cell reception.
Then season 3 happened, and the show decided it was about something else now. The episode titled Tomorrow opens with a near wordless montage of Carmy's past set to Trent Reznor. Gorgeous and completely inert. An episode of television where no words are spoken in character dialogue, and yet it told you exactly what the next 10 episodes were going to be. You had a real chef playing himself, teaching Carmy at his own restaurant to listen to the pan.
What? Were you saying something?
You had another real chef, Rene Redzepi, nodding at him across the Noma kitchen. The season was packed with real famous chefs as themselves teaching Carmy. In episode 2, titled Next, Carmy walks out of the freezer, picking up where season 2 left off with now a list of his non-negotiables. Change the menu every single day, less is more, vibrant collaboration. It's corporate wellness garbage. It's what a LinkedIn grifter posts to sell a 6-month course on how to succeed in business without having succeeded in business.
Shut when you think about it.
So, while I'm not a cook myself, understand that operationally, a daily menu change is insane. It kills consistency, makes costing a nightmare, burns out the staff, and turns the restaurant into Carmy's personal art project. Boy, does that sound like an independent film production. In any case, the show frames it as growth, and so everyone watching will now understand the story is changing. The character of Sydney rolls with it, and the show treats her frustration like a deep character development. Meanwhile, the pacing died as episodes become long stretches of people talking about their feelings while the restaurant ran in the background, or didn't run at all. The trauma that used to power the engine became the whole vehicle. The show that moved like a panic attack now moved like somebody describing a panic attack in exhaustive detail for 10 episodes. And the space where the work used to be got filled with famous people. Communist apologist, shitty wrestler turned shitty actor John Cena shows up in episode 5 as the character of Sammy Fact, with his entire function sweeping floors, smoking cigarettes, and introducing the family tradition of haunting each other. The facts were introduced in season 1 and from the outset as brief comic relief, but season 3 multiplied them. So entire stretches go to fact nonsense while the restaurant's actual problems just sit there and you can feel the episodes being padded. None of it is organic. The show that used to feel like it was made by people who worked in restaurants now felt like it was made by people with great casting directors and, well, just calling in favors. By the episode titled Legacy, the show is openly displaying the instability it created and acting surprised when characters react to it. Sydney gets offered a real job by a real chef by way of the character Adam Shapiro, where she will be given a better title, better pay, better benefits, and the show gives her every reason to take it. Carmy is still making unilateral menu calls, still undercutting her in the kitchen, and their partnership agreement sits unsigned on her behalf. The setup is broken. Sydney has better options, and we're supposed to root for her to stay because Carmy's art needs her. It never resolves, it just lingers. Then the finale episode titled Forever, where now Olivia Colman's Chef Terry is closing her restaurant, which is the best restaurant in the show's world, and the finale is just a funeral dinner, which just sucks. It opens with real chef Thomas Keller himself in flashback teaching young Carmy to truss a chicken on his first day at the French Laundry. Also included are Grant Aschitz, Christina Tassi, and a rotation of real famous chefs playing themselves, and half the episode is them just sitting around telling kitchen stories and Carmy having flashbacks.
This is... What? This is boring.
It was a season finale of scripted drama spent watching the actual fine dining industry just talk about itself. The worst part of this episode is that it wasted Chef Terry. Her entire reason for existing was that she refused to give up. Every second counts was her gift to not only Richie, but to what the premise of The Bear was. They brought in an Oscar winner for a prestige bump and then converted her into a post-it note role. Recognizable names as seasoning instead of ingredients that have to fit the recipe. Nothing Happens was the consensus of season 3. Everywhere. From the exact people who had just spent 2 years romanticizing this show, the audience score cratered into the low 50s, the lowest in the show's history, while show critics kept grading it on reputation. By the time season 4 had dropped, The Bear had stopped being a pleasure and started being an obligation.
Oh shit, here we go again.
You watched because you had come this far. Like me. That is how it felt. 917 million minutes, down roughly 24% from season 3's 1.2 billion minutes, and the show fell from a series high to the 7th most streamed title in its week. Critics settled at about 84%, the lowest of any season. The audience landed at 68%, while better than season 3, nowhere near the 92% the first 2 seasons posted. Still decent for a half-hour drama. In 2024, this show set the record for most Emmys a comedy has ever won in a single year, 11 for season 2. And yet with season 3, it went 0 for 13, in which case it was nominated 13 times and went home empty 13 times. The biggest single year drop for a comedy in Emmy history.
Well, how about that?
So to say the show took a huge nosedive is an understatement. Episode 4, titled Worms, is actually the lowest rated episode of season 4. The only standalone Sydney episode in the entire series dropped into the middle of the season, while the single biggest open question in the show was whether she could run the kitchen she was about to inherit. We are finally going to see Sydney actually run something. I'm just kidding. Sydney gets her hair braided at her cousin's in a long conversation. She babysits a 10-year-old and has a long boring conversation, and tours Chef Adam Shapiro's build-out for his new restaurant, all while he recruits her for reasons?
That doesn't make sense.
The only cooking in the one episode this show ever reserved for its incoming head chef is boxed pasta with a middle schooler. As preparation for the succession, the writers treated being wanted as if it proved her, and being wanted is all the hour contains. Then the dreaded wedding episode titled Bears, which tried to take us back to the episode of Fishes in season 2, and damn was it a drag.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
The episode Fishes ran on dread with years of resentment in every scene tightening the wire. The episode of Bears runs on reconciliation. At 70 minutes is the longest episode in the series, and it is set at the wedding of Richie's ex-wife, Tiff, and it spends that runtime handing out forgiveness to literally every character. The whole cast ends up under a table coaxing Richie's daughter through her fear of dancing. This is also where a cameo from Brie Larson finally shows up as Francie Fact, the long-teased sister. The way they presented Brie Larson was supposed to be a holy moment that was a literal dud, because no one cared. She arrives, screams at the character of Sugar over a feud the show never really explains, and then makes up with her under the table.
You got here? I just sat down. I'm just getting started. It's delicious, though. Thank you.
I'll just go fuck myself.
Sorry, what?
Mahalo.
She shares a scene with her on-screen brothers, and you completely forget she's even a fact. It plays like she's meeting them for the first time. With this episode, the writers studied their own greatest hit and still missed what made it special. And that's a show chasing its own past highs instead of finding new, honest stories.
Not a great plan.
And finally, the season ended on the move the whole show had been building toward and dreading. Carmy, the literal master chef, the documented elite training, the awards, the resume and kitchens that actually matter, decides he doesn't want to do this anymore. He tells Sydney and Richie he's leaving, and the show frames it as growth. Carmy needs to find himself outside the kitchen, and we don't learn why until the start of season 5.
You serious?
But Sydney has proven she can run the place. So how do they end it? You guessed it. An entire episode in a shed in the back of the restaurant with them yelling and shouting and Richie just happy to be there. Which is how everyone limped into season 5. Obligated. Season 5 arrived a couple of weeks ago on June 25th with 97% of the season taking place across a single day. In season 4, the start of the season starts with the character of Uncle Jimmy pulling the plug on the bear. In season 5, we find out that Uncle Jimmy's money has run out, and the storyline they set up in season 4 is already out the window because franchise.
Franchise. Beg pardon? Franchise. Franchise the damn thing. It's too damn good.
The whole season is set up during a storm when it floods the basement the same night they believe a Michelin inspector is coming to dinner. So now we're at the end. They set up the day, they make a lot of speeches, Carmy says he isn't happy, then shuts up, Sydney is right about everything. They duct tape some pipes, and that was Sydney's idea, of course. One of the facts falls through the roof. Unc and the character of the computer are still talking franchise and air rights.
Shut when you think about it.
Rob Reiner can't make an appearance for reasons. We meet Marcus's dad after 5 seasons. Sugar demands her mom leave in a storm with her child to come sit in a flooding restaurant. Sugar and her husband then bang outside under a tent, but all in all, they survive the service, and wouldn't you know, the rain stops. The inspector everyone was panicking about was never even there that night because the character of Peter Clark had come through in season 4 on Carmy's watch.
Well, how about that?
At the end of it all, the bear earned 2 Michelin stars while literally everything was going wrong. The highest validation the show could hand its characters earned on the work Carmy ran, collected after he decided to leave. Even in this episode, we see exactly why Carmy is the best when he makes brioche on the spot. Like, why set that up just for him to off? Sydney takes over as the head chef. Shocker. She names the long-standing character of Tina her chef de cuisine. The restaurant is now in the hands of Sydney, Richie, and Sugar. Marcus takes the pastry program solo after Luca goes back to Copenhagen. The beef becomes a franchise, and Carmy off to become an architect, which the show never sets up. Okay, he likes to draw. For 5 seasons, Carmy was established as the only person capable of dragging the beef up to a 2-star cooking Michelin restaurant. The show instead took the Sydney route and, well, they killed it.
Not a great plan.
That's like building Rocky around Rocky, then deciding the real fight belongs to the assistant trainer because he has healthier communication habits.
When the 15th round, you're coming out.
What can I say? I stayed with the show as an obligation, not because I loved it anymore, and that's sad. It's my opinion, and maybe some people share that too. I tuned in for Carmy and Richie, not a Sydney-led future. Saying Sydney didn't earn the restaurant is a claim about what the show put on screen, and nothing else. Carmy's pedigree is documented inside the series from episode 1. His entire character was built on surviving kitchens that break most people, and the show spent time proving what he could do before the damage caught up with him. Sydney's on-screen record is a catering company that folded, kitchens the dialogue name drops, good instincts, and dissatisfaction. Sydney's character was built on wanting more, but being frustrated with Carmy and increasingly ready to leave, but never leaving. Why?
That doesn't make sense.
What made this person so great other than her love of the craft? That's like someone saying, I deserve better, while renewing the lease on the basement.
Idiot.
When the writers finally gave her a standalone episode, they spent it on a recruiting pitch about what she represents and never once tested what she can do. So when the show hands her the restaurant in season 3, essentially, it doesn't feel like Succession. It feels like the story needing an exit ramp for the damaged protagonist and handing it to the DEI hire on the back of his work. I'm not sorry. Say what you want for that, because I know it is harsh, but that is where we find ourselves with how shitty the quality of the industry has gone. The irony here is that The Bear didn't invent this decline. It followed the script other shows already wrote. It was small, contained, and disciplined, which is how half the last decade's biggest shows were born, and losing the discipline once the success blew up is how they will be forgotten. Take Stranger Things. In 2016, it was an 8-episode series about kids on bikes in a small town about strange things happening.
That was easy.
It was an homage to 80s films that came before it based on real events. It became one of the biggest shows in history. It took 10 years to deliver 5 seasons of 8 episodes. By season 4, it was running feature-length episodes budgeted at $50 to $60 million each. It was no longer kids on bikes in a small town. The intimacy was swapped for green screens and spectacle, and nothing on screen felt dangerous the way one kid in one basement once did. The thing people loved was the smallness, and the smallness is exactly what ego killed. Killing Eve is the cleanest specimen in television because the decline is a staircase you can read straight off the aggregator. Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote season 1, with the show changing showrunners every season after, with the series finale that sits on the worst ever list. The lesson there is specific in that the discipline was a person, and nobody protected the asset when the person left. The Walking Dead's first season was 6 episodes about people in a situation they did not understand, and for the first few seasons after, it became the biggest thing on cable. And once it did, it started managing itself like inventory in split seasons, padded episodes, shock deaths as a retention tool, and numerous spin-offs. The result for these 4 shows is identical in that the specific thing that got the audience is the thing success stops protecting. So now you might be asking, Sean, what is the point of all of this? And blah, 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 my ass. This was never a review. I just ran through 5 seasons of a show I loved. And there's a reason for all of it. The Bear did something that has become rare. It released a season every year, usually the same month, around the same date, 5 years straight. It has been a long time since television did that, and that is a feat on its own. But it also tells the story of where TV once was, and how far we have been removed from not only consistent TV, but consistent quality TV. The sad truth is they don't go hand in hand anymore. I'm looking at you, Stranger Things. So what does any of this mean for anyone building a TV show right now? If you are building an independent series outside the studio system, you need to understand how a show like The Bear gets made. There were no stars and there were no franchise to leech off of. A lot of this show fell on the shoulders of Christopher Storer.
Who?
And more specifically, what Christopher Storer already was before FX ever heard the pitch. Storer was not some unknown with a great script. He came up co-directing Bo Burnham's specials, he produced Burnham's film 8th Grade, it's a good film, and he directed Hassan Minaj's Homecoming King. From 2019, he was a director and executive producer on Raimi. I don't know. So now stay with me, because I'm sure the question is lingering. But Sean, how do I get to the point without devoting years to building connections and expertise and blah, 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 my ass?
Hey man, just want to let you know that sometimes you gotta shut the fuck up. And this current time is just one of those times you gotta shut the fuck up. I don't think you're a bad person, I just don't want to hear you talking anymore. You gotta shut the fuck up.
Each summer, every major network hears about 500 pitches. Out of those 500, about 70 become scripts. Out of 70 scripts, about 20 become pilots. And post-strike, that pilot count is down to 8, maybe 12 per network. Out of those pilots, a handful gets a series order. And even then, a series order still means nothing because roughly 2 out of every 3 new broadcast series get canceled after their first season. Streaming is worse, not better. Netflix renewed 75 to 80% of its new US series in 2016 and 2017. By 2022, that renewal rate was 23%. The data since shows the real kill point isn't surviving season 1, but rather reaching seasons 3. And the whole pool is shrinking. In 2022, 600 scripted series hit the air, which would be the most in the history of television and the last time that number will ever be seen. In 2023, it was 516. Buyers ordered 661 series in 2022. In 2023, it was 418. By the first half of 2025, the top 6 streamers were cutting scripted orders 3 times more than the rest of the industry, with Amazon alone cutting orders by more than half. Netflix ended 2025 renewing about half its new series and canceling 1 in 5, with twice as many shows axed as the year before. Broadcast just finished its bloodiest season since 2020, with a third of its big 4 scripted series slates gone. And the recovery everyone is celebrating this spring is 55 scripted shows across 4 networks. As of 2026, basic cable is not making scripted television at all. None. A decade ago, it produced a record 186 new scripted series annually, driving the golden age of cable drama. I started my career in 2013. The channels that produced hundreds of originals a decade ago now only run reruns, reality, and true crime. The entire ecosystem I spent 10 years working in has stopped existing. So understand that a show that gets pitched, then gets a pilot, then gets a season order, survives season 1, reaches season 3, and is still operating at season 5 is not only a success story, but a statistical freak.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
The Bear ran that entire gauntlet, then pissed it away. So what kind of investment lets you treat the rarest position in television as disposable? As I always say, follow the money. To do that, you start with the mechanism. In the old model, a studio would deficit finance a series. The network paid a license fee covering roughly 60 to 80% of what each episode cost. The studio then ate the difference, and then the studio made its money back through syndication and international sales. The deficit was a bet, and then the market graded it eventually. Streaming replaced that with cost plus. The streamer pays the studio full production costs plus contracted premium, and in exchange it buys out the back end. No syndication bet, no library upside, no later verdict. The Bear's cost plus taken to its logical end because the studio and and the streamer are the same company. FX Production makes it, Hulu carries it, Disney owns both. The premium is Disney paying Disney a markup. No license fee crosses company lines, no third party grades a single season, and there is no line anywhere on which the show's income meets the show's cost. Never mark to market, not at greenlight, not at renewal, not once in 5 seasons. A cost-plus show doesn't even have a date on which a paying public can grade it. A film earns on one date, and every downstream window prices off that opening weekend. Television never earned on that date. Broadcast's real debut happened months before air at upfronts where advertisers committed billions against audiences that did not exist yet. The viewer was never the customer, and a premiere for a show like this feeds no box office. It's just Emmy, machinery, and talent relations. Now go one layer up, and the insulation gets thicker. Disney's money is shareholder equity, corporate debt, and operating cash from parks and cruises and ESPN and, well, the merchandise. The people ultimately funding a show like this are pension funds, index funds, and retail investors who will never read the script. Their verdict lands on the stock price 4 times a year, and it grades parks, cruises, ESPN, and movies all at once. No earnings call has ever asked what the bear costs because the people funding it don't know they fund it. Inside that arrangement, success reprices in only one direction. Season 2's premiere week more than doubled Season 1 on Nielsen. The Season 3 premiere drew 5.4 million views in 4 days, the best FX premiere on Hulu, with 1.2 billion minutes in its first week. So the renewal negotiations moved, and a renewal negotiation here means Disney approving its own raise. Jeremy Allen White reportedly went from roughly $350,000 an episode to around $750,000 an episode by Season 3. Decline reprices nothing. The 24% premiere week drop into Season 4 and the worst critic scores in the show's history had no counterparty position to act on them. A license would have renegotiated the fee. A foreign buyer would have cut the next minimum guarantee. When the studio and the buyer are the same company, there is no license fee to renegotiate and no minimum guarantee to cut. Those are the 2 terms a counterparty adjusts when a show declines. Neither exists here. So Season 5 was funded on the same basis as Season 4 despite a 24% audience drop. Film risk gets priced differently even inside the studio system. The best example here also comes from one of the worst movies. The Entourage movie shows the mechanism. The character of Larson McCreedle, played by Billy Bob Thornton, is a Texas billionaire co-financing the studio slate, and the movie Hyde is a $100 million studio picture running $15 million over budget. Ari Gold, based off the Ari Emanuel, who at this point is the studio head, cannot approve the overage himself. The next draw needs the co-financer's sign-off, and while that approval is pending, the co-financer's son freezes post-production and demands cuts. And even though the movie is played as a comedy, the arrangement is standard practice. Studios lay slate risk off to outside equity. Legendary and Rat Pack Dune did it at Warner Bros. Skydance did it at Paramount. And once a picture needs more investment past its approved budget, the outside equity gets approval rights. An independent film keeps that pricing and loses the studio backdrop. The budget is assembled piece by piece with equity in first loss position, pre-sales to foreign distributors against minimum guarantees, senior debt lent against those contracts, gap debt against unsold territories, tax credits, and a completion bond over the whole capitalization. Each party runs its own numbers, and any of them can kill the project by passing, but the risk has a defined shape. One asset, one raise that closes once, a defined recoupment waterfall, a finished film the market prices in public, starting with the opening date the P&A spend is built around. An independent series keeps that pricing and loses the defined shape. A series is a recurring obligation. The raise doesn't close once. Cast options have to be held between seasons. Overhead runs whether cameras do or do not. No counterparty is obligated to fund Season 2. The pre-sale market for the finished films barely exists for unsold seasons, and the buyers who pay license fees for episodes are the studios, the system the project was built to avoid. There is no release date, no upfront to sell into. The actual debut is a market screening in front of buyers, and filmmakers who don't know that walk into investor conversations selling a launch that doesn't exist. Film-level diligence on every dollar without a film's exit and without a parent absorbing those mistakes. At Disney, budget slips slippage cost review scores. Here, it's insolvency, because nothing sits between a bad creative decision and its cost. So, what is the solution here? If you're raising for an independent series, everything runs backwards from the buyer because the tools that carry a film raise don't exist for you. Nobody pre-buys an unsold season, so there are no minimum guarantees, no senior debt lent against contracts, no gap against unsold territories. Your raise is equity in first loss position, tax incentives, and deferrals. That's the whole list, and it dictates the order of operations. Start at the exit and price it. Which buyers acquire finished independent seasons? What have they actually paid for in comparable titles in the last 24 months? That range is the first number in the raise because it caps everything behind it. Size the budget under that number. If comparable acquisitions runs X dollars and the budget needs 3 times that amount to shoot, the raise is dead at assembly and no investor meeting changes that. The budget for an independent season is whatever the realistic acquisition range can return with room for equity to recoup first, minus nothing for wishful thinking about a bidding war. Count the obligations a film doesn't have on day one. Holding cast options between seasons costs money. The entity's overhead runs whether cameras do or do not. Those go into the raise as capped line items with dates where the number you are asking for is understating what equity is actually carrying. Raise for Season 1 as the entire investment closed once. A formal recoupment waterfall and explicit continuation thresholds must be hard-coded into the operating agreement prior to capital deployment. You must predefine the exact buyer response metrics that trigger a subsequent capital raise alongside the precise triggers for a structured wind-down and capital return. Documenting these parameters pre-closing removes emotional bias from subsequent finding decisions. So, here is the lesson. János Kornai, a Hungarian economist who spent his entire career inside a planned economy studying why socialist factories produce garbage.
Well, how about that?
Published the concept in 1979, the soft budget constraint. An organization who loses gets covered regardless of performance stops behaving like its budget is real because it isn't. The factory that knows the state refills the account doesn't fix the production line. Kornai showed the damage isn't laziness or corruption, but rather rational adaptation. When the constraint is soft, quality stops being what survival requires. So quality stops being what the organization produces. The concept outlived the Soviet bloc because it kept explaining things like banks in 2008 behaved exactly like Kornai's factories once too big to fail told them the constraint was soft. And the research on bailout-backed banks confirms they take worse risks than banks that know they can die. The fatal error is assuming that a soft budget constraint only afflicts low-tier productions when in practice, premium creative pedigree is the ultimate cloaking device for structural decay. Understanding the mechanics of a soft budget constraint prevents the bleed, but identifying where your specific entity is actively softening requires an independent diagnostic framework. Producers mistake a premium creative pedigree such as awards, review scores, and early buzz for structural permanence. In true risk assessment of television, unmonitored creative momentum is a liability, not an asset. Only a disciplined, data-verified operational model functions as capital. An internal production budget merely reflects management's speculative aspirations, meaning you are inherently blind to your own foundational vulnerabilities. You assume you're running a flawless machine, but you are completely blind to the narrative engine failure, the episode padding, and the budget slippage that will cause your series to implode by season 2. A risk-adjusted project profile is that split run from outside your series and independent, decoupled appraisal executed entirely from outside your entity. It is a clinical, institutional audit of your narrative engine stability, your episodic cost-plus modeling, and your creative governance structure. It removes the emotion and exposes the exact operational stress points that will cause a buyer to cancel your show or an investor to face immediate insolvency because no parent company is coming to absorb your mistakes. That is the work at Wrap Consulting. What is your risk-adjusted project profile? Everything you have been sold about this process was built to keep you chasing access, validation, and hope. But it was never built to tell you the truth. Return that shit to its sender.
Whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
If you found value in this breakdown, thank you for your time. Please hit like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If it wasn't for you, I appreciate you sticking around anyway. I will see you all next time.